For patch 11.1, I want you guys to focus on 3 comps which are by far above the rest, but you still need to learn everything just in case you get one of those weird games where you need to play something else. Without further ado, let's get into it. It's been a while, guys. I haven't updated the meta snapshot for a bit, but we're back now, and I'm excited for set 4.5 as well, but let's focus on the important stuff right now, which is the 3 comps that we need to learn. Before we get into it, one thing to note is that the legendary comp that was really popular in the last patches, that isn't really being played too much anymore at the highest levels. It's still good, and if you still can do it, go for it, but the games are just lasting much shorter and they're a little quicker than they were before, so you can't really get away with that as much. But for this week, I want you guys to focus on Divine Warwick, Ahri, and Dusk comps. These comps are really close, even though they're separated by tiers. Divine Warwick's by far the best at the highest level of play, and then right behind it is Dusk and Ahri, and after that, it's like a pretty steep drop-off. So if you guys were playing, like, let's say 10 games, you'd probably play one of these 3 comps, maybe 6 or 7 of those times, and then one of the B tiers in the other 3 or 4 games. And note that there are a lot of comps in the B tier, so it's like they're all sharing those like very limited slots in terms of like how often they're played. That doesn't mean they're bad. That just means that you need to get a really good start for them, or like natural the champions in a roll down later in the game. So with that in mind, we're going to put extra focus on these 3 comps, and the reason behind that is that there are a lot of substitutions you can make within these comps. So if you guys look at a lot of those like stat tracking sites where like there's some sites that like automatically track what compositions are being played the most, and a lot of times those are really inaccurate because they don't have that much of a sample size for a lot of the variations of these comps, which are being played by, again, the best players in the world. So just keep that in mind as you like use those sites. And like, for example, if you go for like a 6 divine comp, like notice I have like 12 champions here or something like that. No one's going to play 12 champions, but it shows you every single substitution that you can get for this specific composition. So for example, you don't need to run 6 divine, you could run 4 divine. You don't need to run 3 adept, you could run 2 adept, or even 0. For hunter, you could have like 2, 3, or 4 hunter, and a lot of these sites, they're just not able to track that. It's a shame. I wish they did, because then life would be a lot easier, but unfortunately they don't. So I was actually very surprised when I looked at one and they had this comp as like a very low tier, because it's being like the most played by all of the top 10 players in like each of the major regions. So it just goes to show that even if you have access to all the data, if you don't know how to interpret it, it's not going to be the best or most helpful for you. But yeah, with that in mind, like Warwick, he's the star of the show. There's no doubt about that. Like Quicksilver, Runon's Deathblade, we've been building those items for him for a while, but you can also build an RFC on Warwick. I've been seeing that played a ton recently, and they just put him in the back, and you buff him up with Zeke's Herald in your front line, or Locket's in the front line. It's really good for him too. If you can only fit one of the hunters in, Ashe or Kindred, say you're only playing 2 hunter, the way you choose between Ashe and Kindred is really just dependent on the items that you have. So if you have like blue buff, go ahead, play Kindred. If you have like Infinity Edge, like the same stuff that Warwick uses, like Deathblade, Infinity Edge, Runons, Quicksilver, go ahead, drop in Ashe. And there's a ton of other stuff you can play too, such as you could add in Morgana for Dazzler instead of Ezreal, because I know Ezreal is a legendary, so there are a lot of different substitutions you can make. If you need to drop in Adept, obviously Yone's a legendary, so you might not get him every game, but you could drop Shen if you have other frontliners. If you're dropping Divines, you could drop Jax, or like maybe you didn't hit Lee Sin because he's a legendary. So a ton of different options here that you guys can choose from, but the main stars of the show is Warwick, getting at least 4 Divines, getting at least 2 Hunter, getting some Adepts if you can, and pretty much just going from there. The reason why you want to get a lot of Divine and Hunter units is because Warwick buff units that he shares a trait with, so the more you play of those, the more benefit you're going to get from playing Warwick. One thing to note, the reason why we didn't build RFC on Warwick before was because they made a change a couple patches ago to his ability where he used to stun or fear enemies that surrounded him after he killed a unit, but he no longer does that, so more people are building RFC on him just because you don't get like, it's kind of counterintuitive before if you did that, but you could build any sort of stuff on Warwick, just QSS or Runons, and then 2 damage items. Just do one of those 2 combos and you'll be doing fine. So after that, we have the A tier. We're going to start with the Dusk comp. So this comp, it's no surprise. You guys have been seeing this like pretty much the whole set. Frankly, I'm a little bored of it, so I used to be a little upset that they were going to remove Dusk in the next set, but like it's been overplayed too much, and like we've been playing Jhin with this same exact comp every time too. Jhin, he has been killing everything this patch. You definitely want like Deathblade Runons on him. I've seen like double Runons Deathblade. I've seen like double Deathblade Runons. Those are like the 2 preferred items on him. The third item, it could be literally any sword item. It could be like Guardian Angel if you want some defense. Bloodthirster is even working. You could throw just any sword item is going to be good, except for like Spirit Shoujin, obviously, because he doesn't use mana. But like you guys already knew that if you guys are watching, most likely. And Riven items, I list out 3 Riven items, but they're really not that important. So do not prioritize Riven items at all, because she could use anything. Like, that's the great thing about Riven. She's so flexible. She could use stuff like blue buff. She could use ability power. She could use all sorts of defensive items. There's just like so much you could slap on her, and yeah, she's still going to do the same job of tanking everything in the front line while Jhin 4 shots and kills everything. One other thing to note about this comp, a lot of people were playing like Vayne carry, 3-star carry before, and I'm not seeing that anymore. So unless something changes or someone finds a new way to play that build, I would put that on pause for now. As for the substitutions, you can't always get chosen Dusk, so a lot of times you just play 4 Dusk and add in random legendary units in the late game, or go something like Keepers. You could go like 2, 4, or 6 Keepers. I've seen 6 Keepers actually do like really, really well, but it's just really hard to get because you need a legendary, you need a chosen keeper, and like you need to hold on to all the keepers that you generally replace through the mid game. So it's like an option to consider, but don't go try to like force 6 keeper just because I say it's like one of the options, you know? You got to stay a little flexible right now. Going on to the next composition, we have Ahri, Vanguard, Mystic. Oh, and just by the way, guys, in case you guys are new, just because I haven't posted it in a while, you could get all this information on my website at bunnymuffins.lol/meta. And there's a lot of other TFT stuff that you could use here as well. And like, so just be sure to check that out after you guys watch this video. So Ahri, Vanguard, Mystic. This comp was really hard to like build on the team builder because there's so many different options. And unlike the Warwick build where they overlapped a lot of units, Ahri works with pretty much any other 7 units. I know that sounds kind of silly because you guys are looking for like specific compositions, but like if you have items for Ahri and you have a 2-star Ahri, you could use any sort of tank line. I prefer having like Sejuani Aatrox in my front line. Aatrox got just buffed, so he's going to be really strong now. And then of course you want to add in Yuumi because she's a spirit, so you might as well buff your whole team. And then like stuff like Thresh and Cassiopeia, they're both Dusk, and they're both Vanguards and Mystics, so it just makes sense to put them in, but you don't always get these champions, so if you don't end up getting them, don't sweat, because you could play stuff like Adepts instead, like the 3 Adept comp. You could go like Shen, Aurelia, and Yone, and then use all their complementing synergies from Aurelia, such as adding in Dazzler with Morgana and Ezreal for like the Enlightened buff with the Aurelia and Morgana, and then Ezreal's just like a legendary, so he's always going to be good. There are a ton of different options. It's going to take like an hour to go over all of them, but pretty much just any frontline is going to work, either Adepts or Vanguards, and then you just add in complementing synergy. So if one of your tanks has a certain synergy, just go ahead and find the best unit that fits in that synergy. So it's like, we were talking about Aurelia before, the best Enlightened unit is going to be Morgana. And then after Morgana, the best Dazzler unit to complement her is going to be Ezreal. You just kind of have to mix and match everything in order to get your comp to 8 units. But Ahri literally works with any sort of front line. And again, the stat tracking websites, they can't pick all of these little variations up. So it's actually like really deceiving, because I was checking one out because someone showed me one of them, and like the end result was very surprising compared to what people are actually playing. And that's not that stat tracking websites are useless. They're very useful, but you just have to know their limitations and work around that. After this, we have the B tiers. So we're just going to do a quick scan of the B tiers just because they're all very, you're not going to be playing them too often. So if you just get a great start for one of them, you kind of could just tunnel into it after stage 4, after you roll down. So the first one's going to be Hunters. I like 5 Hunters a lot. You could stay at 4 if you don't get the Chosen, or just 3 if you don't have Chosen at all, and just add in random good units or legendaries. It revolves around Ashe, Kindred, and Warwick carries. You could add in the same items to Warwick as we did in the Divine comp, but this pretty much works with any of these 3 guys carrying. You want at least 2 of these people itemized in order to win games, and then like hopefully 1 legendary unit such as Yone, or just like a random legendary instead of 5 Hunters. Really good comp. It's fun to watch. Hunters, it's like I always love seeing them do that, like their Hunter trait activation. It just always looked cool to me for some reason. After this, we have the Ashe Brawler Elderwood. Big change to this comp. I used to list this out as 6 Elderwood, but no one's really playing that. It's still good, but this version's much better with 3 Elderwood and then adding in the 3 Adept units. Adept is just broken because Yone's so good, and Shen and Aurelia. Shen just CCs everyone and tanks for everything, and Aurelia can potentially disarm an enemy carry, which is absolutely like game breaking if you guys ask me. So that's why Adepts are always being run, just because all the units are good individually, and the trade's good against pretty much everyone, because If you guys didn't know, you gain mana based on how often you attack. You gain 10 mana per attack. So if you're slowing down their attack speed, which is what Adept does, all the units on the enemy team are going to cast a little later, which could be like a turning point in a fight. But in this comp, you want to do Ashe carry. Any sort of items work on her. I just listed out sample ones here. Quicksilver Sash, I do like having it just so she doesn't get crowd controlled. And then the 2 damage items, it doesn't really matter what you go for. It just depends on what you get during the game. Infinity Edge is good. Last Whisper is good if you're facing a lot of Vanguards, which are being played a lot because Ahri Vanguard Mystic's being played. You could add in stuff like Giant Slayer, Deathblade, Runons, like all the usual suspects that we do for attack damage carry items. For secondary items, itemizing Set or Yone or Ezreal are going to be really good. So just save up your items for that, or get utility items such as Zeke's Herald or like Zephyr's for late in the game. Like I think in the mid game and early game, Zeke's Herald's probably the best item to slam if you can't build like a specific Ashe item. So just go ahead, build those, put them on like Kindred, and just stack your carry with that item. After this, we have Enlightened. Talon actually made a comeback, and it's kind of weird because he's been off for a while, but he can actually be played now. You want stuff like Deathblade, Infinity Edge. Last Whisper is also really good. Guardian Angel, if you're seeing that he's dying a lot. It depends on the fights that you're having. There's not too much else to say. You want Morgana with a Morella just because it's a broken unit. You want to make sure that you have the 2 assassin buff, just because any buff to Talon's really good, and a lot of the assassins suck, so you'd only really want to run Pike, because the rest of them don't really do anything. They do damage, but if you don't build around them, they're not going to do damage. So stuff like Akali, Diana, Katarina, they're just not going to work if you don't build around them. So just use Pike and stay at 2 assassin. 4 Enlightened is really good just because it gives Talon a lot of mana. So you'll notice here that I don't really list out any sort of chosen trait, and that means you could go for literally any one of these. And if you do, you just have to replace one of the units. So if you get like chosen Assassin Talon, you don't even need to run the Pike. If you get chosen Enlightened, you could replace Janna for Zillion later in the game. If you get chosen Adept, you just keep the same team because 4 Adept's pretty broken. A lot of different stuff you can do, so just keep that in mind. Like the chosen's very flexible, as with most comps in the game right now. So Warlords, we've been over this before. Warlords, they can be run with anything. You just play 6 Warlord and try to fast 9 from there, and just play whatever frontline you have with damage. So this is kind of like a mid to late game look what we have here. And in terms of carries, it might not necessarily even be Katarina or Azir carry. You could use stuff like Kayn, you could use stuff like Yone, like any of the random legendaries can carry with these items. Like Katarina is actually like a super good item holder for Kayn and Yone. And the attack damage items that Azir's holding, you could use it to transition into one of the S tier comps with Jhin carry or the Warwick carry. So tons of different options here. You just kind of play Warlords if you get a Warlord chosen early game and get like a bunch of 2-star Warlords to win streak with early. And then it's a super easy way to go like fast 8 or fast 9 after that. Reroll Mage, like Veigar got nerfed a bunch, and you could play Veigar in Elderwood or in the Mage version. Doesn't really matter which. You could also go like Nami carry still. It's not the best, but like I still see it being played occasionally. And if you get it, it's like really good because it's a free win streak in the early to mid game. At least from what I've seen. And if you do go for the reroll version, like 3-star Annie is going to tank a lot of different stuff, so you could just go ahead and go for this. But you really don't want to be playing this comp that often. You only want it with chosen Nami and with like a lot of other mages in the beginning of the game. So onto Duelists. Duelists, like chosen Yasuo, 3-star Yasuo early game. It's a free fast 8, fast 9. Same with like the Warlords. If you just get a good start for it, you could go fast whatever, and it's going to be pretty good. Not really much else to say here. The thing about this comp is that you don't need to run any of these synergies. Like I've seen Yasuo with like 7 legendaries and like a random complementary unit as a 9-person comp work really well. It's just Yasuo is just like a condition to get to the late part of the game, and you don't have to run like a specific duelist comp in order to get first place, if that's what you're wondering. In fact, like running a specific duelist comp is a sure way to not get first place because their power level kind of diminishes throughout the course of the game. So if you don't use it to transition into like a super late game with like a bunch of legendaries, you're kind of wasting the potential of this comp. Onto Zed Ninja Shade. So Zed, he's still being played a bunch. I see him being played like maybe like every other game one person's playing him. Sometimes like I see him in a bunch of games in a row. You want the same items you've always wanted on him. You want the RFC, you want the Runons, you want the Quicksilver, And the rest of the items, like, they just don't matter. So you just get the team items like Lockets, Zeeks, and Chalices. Zeeks is probably the most important one because, like, Zed, he uses attack speed, so you want more attack speed on him. Not much else to say there. But if you get like a good start for this, you get the good items on Zed, you get an early 2-star Zed, and then you get a chosen of him later. It's going to be really good to run, so just go ahead and try it and let me know how it goes. It's like really strong if you hit it, but it's just hard to force. It's just not like super strong anymore where it was S tier that 1 week. Moonlight Diana, it's still playable. I don't recommend it. Moonlight's been nerfed so much. And yeah, just try not to play this, but if you do get like perfect Moonlight start, go for like a Diana build. After that, C tiers, Aphelios, no one plays, Cultists, no one plays anymore, and Sharpshooters, no one really plays anymore. So if I were you, I would avoid those. But yeah, that's it for the comps this week. Let's go ahead and sum up. In the S tier, the 3 comps you guys want to learn are the Warwick, Dusk, and Ahri compositions. They're just by far the best. So if you guys really master them right now, you'll be able to use these comps for the next 2 weeks to really take advantage of everyone and hopefully get whatever rank you want. So if you guys do have like a specific goal or rank in mind, go ahead, let me know down in the comments because I'm actually quite curious to see what level everyone who watches my videos are. And yeah, the B tiers, keep them in mind, but don't play them that often because it's going to be really rare. You just kind of tunnel the composition if you get like a perfect start for it. But you really just want to find a way to transition or play one of these top 3 comps. So that's pretty much it. I might update this guide next week depending on how much the meta changes, but I am going to be very excited for set 4.5. So I really do hope to see you guys there. If you guys are new and you learned something new, go ahead, hit the subscribe below. And if this video was helpful in any way, go ahead, hit the like, and let me know what your thoughts are on this patch so far. I don't know how many of you guys are still playing this, how many are playing set 4.5. So let me know all that in the comments below. I try to read as many as I can. I don't get to respond to all of them, but I do definitely read all of them. So, but I do have a pattern where I like try to respond to every comment within the first couple of hours. So if you guys do need like a question asked, go ahead and do it there. And if I do end up missing a comment here or there, go ahead, join my Discord and ask the question in there. There are a lot of people who are very helpful in there, and it's honestly like a great community to learn more about TFT. We have like a bot that updates all the changes that are happening in TFT also in a specific channel. So definitely go check that out. Links in description below, but I believe it's like discord.gg/BunnyMuffins. But apart from that, yeah, still check out the description below because like Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff, my website, if you guys need more info on that, it's all in there. So I hope to see you guys for set 4.5, but this is it from me for now.